Hey guys, welcome back to Wentworth Life, the channel that's dedicated to award-winning TV show Wentworth. Now, in today's video, I'm going to be taking a look at Kaz Proctor, a character who could sometimes be unpredictable, but loads of fun. Believe it or not, Kaz was actually top dog in Wentworth longer than B. Smith, but not without a few bumpy rides along the way. So, get yourselves comfy when we take a look at my top 10 favourite Kaz Proctor moments. Number 10, Kaz's favour to be. Back in Season 3, we were introduced to Kaz Proctor, the head of the Red Right Hand. When B received a letter from the Red Right Hand, she accepted a visit from Kaz, which didn't go down too well at first, as B was trying to tell Kaz to stop what she was doing, causing Kaz to think that B was being brainwashed or coerced by the male officers. Anyway, after an episode where B is attacked by Nils Jasper, B sets up another visit with Kaz, where B ends up giving Kaz a sketch of Nils Jasper and telling her that he bashes women and that he also bashed her. This absolutely angers Kaz, who ends up saying, "Don't worry, I'll find him, and when I do," and you can literally see the anger in Kaz's face. I can remember thinking, oh my god, Kaz is gonna become this big character in Wentworth soon. I can feel it, because at this stage she was just kind of on the outside and only appearing in certain episodes of Season 3, but I can remember thinking, oh boy, Kaz is going to be trouble. Number 9, Kaz saves Liz. A heartbreaking scene now in my next spot. So, in Season 6, Liz was diagnosed with early onset dementia, and it completely broke my heart. So Kaz was being a huge support to Liz and looking after her, but when Liz witnesses a brutal attack that Drago launches on Cherry, Drago ended up wanting to get rid of Liz before she talks. Marie offered to help Drago, but rather than actually kill Liz with her own bare hands, she ended up getting into Liz's head, telling her that things would be so much better if she could just go to sleep and never wake up again. She even brought round a deadly syringe filled with an overdose of heroin, which Liz ended up taking off Marie. So we then cut to a scene where we watch Liz getting ready to inject herself, and just before she puts the needle in her arm, Kaz arrives just in time and stops her. Liz then breaks down and tells Kaz that she just wants to die. It's so heartbreaking to watch, and it always puts a lump in my throat. Thank God Kaz arrived when she did. Number 8, Kaz slaps Allie. As soon as Marie Winter arrived in Wentworth, all the trouble started. Kaz and Allie both have history with Marie. Kaz blames Marie for getting Allie onto the drugs, and Allie and Marie were once lovers. During Season 6, Allie was meeting up with Marie behind Kaz's back and talked over a load of old times together. Now, Marie wormed her way back into Allie's heart, and after Kaz had tried to poison Marie, Allie goes ahead and tells Marie that it was Kaz. I mean, what the fuck, Allie? Allie then makes Marie promise that she won't do or say anything about it, but of course, it isn't very long before Marie just goes up to Kaz in the yard and confronts her, threatening to pretty much slit her throat. Kaz then walks up to Allie because she knows that it was Allie that told her, so she goes right up to her and smacks her in the face in front of all of the women, and it's one hell of a slap and I bloody loved it, but I kind of think that Allie deserved it in my opinion. Number 7, Kaz versus Marie. There was absolutely no love between Kaz and Marie at all. They literally hated each other. Now, after Allie had told Marie that it was Kaz who poisoned her, Marie ended up losing her shit after a very bad meeting with her lawyer, and Marie arms herself with a shiv, heads straight down to the laundry and literally launches an attack on Kaz in front of everyone. Now, one of Kaz's crew gives Kaz another shiv so that she can protect herself, and Marie and Kaz, they then start circling each other in the laundry like wild animals, and it's game on. They start launching shivs at each other, and pretty much they keep missing each other for the most part. I think they do end up getting like one slice each during this showdown, but unfortunately we never actually get to see any real fighting because Allie ends up pressing the panic button and the officers arrive and split up the fight. Which I think is a shame. I would have loved to have seen a few punches thrown before the officers arrived, but it was still a great scene. I have to say though, season 6 is definitely the season where I found Allie's character seriously annoying. Number 6, the right to fuck. A hilarious scene now in our next spot, and we are going back to season 4. Kaz and her crew set up a protest in the yard, and it's basically a protest about the right to fuck. I mean, why not? So, because Vera had agreed to set up conjugal visits for the women, the catch was that the women who have these visits would need to go on the pill, you know, to avoid babies popping out right, left and centre. Anyway, Kaz used this as an opportunity to cause some trouble in the yard, and she even called one of her reporter friends who ended up flying a drone into the prison to record the protests. So the women all strip naked and they start chanting, "What do we want? The right to fuck." It was absolutely hilarious. However, it wasn't long before things started getting out of hand when the officers arrived to drag the women back inside the prison, and the drone was shot down. Kaz and Will then ended up in an altercation where Kaz ends up grabbing Will's scrotum. Will then throws her off him, and this causes Kaz to smash her face into the side of a bench, and it was one hell of a smash to the face. It looked very painful, but I always loved it when Kaz did her little protest, and I think this one is definitely my favourite one. Number 5, who the fuck are you? Going back to season 3 now, and Will Jackson takes a visit to Kaz's house, thinking that the Red Right Hand were responsible for Harry Smith's death, which, by the way, I was always disappointed that we never got to see Harry die on screen after everything that he did to B. Anyway, Will turns up on Kaz's doorstep, and when Kaz answered, she's like, "Who are you?" And Will just bluntly asks her, "Are you Kaz Proctor, the leader of the Red Right Hand?" Kaz then ends up grabbing a baseball bat and swipes it at Will, not once but a few times, until Will ends up grabbing it off her and throwing it in the garden. Will then leaves and says, "Nice Proctor, that's really nice." Kaz then walks down her pathway looking really pissed off, and she's screaming out, "Who the fuck are you?" I just loved this scene because it just shows us how crazy angry Kaz can get when the right buttons are pushed. Number 4, the brawler crash. Now this is one of my favourite scenes from season 5, and it's the moment where the brawler that Kaz is being transported in crashes and ends up in a lake, with Mr. Jackson and another officer escorting her. Now this was quite an intense scene, so Will ends up saving his co-worker at the front of the van and swims him over to dry land to safety, and Will then swims back to save Kaz. However, Kaz is trapped and she's also got a broken arm. So Will ends up breaking the back window, goes in, and Kaz starts to panic, but Will manages to calm her down. Now bear in mind, Will and Kaz did not like each other up until this point in the show. So Will then manages to free Kaz and helps her to swim out, but Will ends up getting trapped just as the van is filling up with water. Kaz ends up back at shore, but she's panicking that Will is about to die because he hasn't come back from the van, and she starts screaming out his name and she's crying, but Will does eventually free himself and swims back up. Will and Kaz then sit on the grass beside each other, and Kaz tells the ambulance people to make sure that he is okay. and it was just so nice to see because it was the moment where Kaz and Will finally bonded and realised they're on the same team. And it was the moment where Kaz realised that not all men are bad, and she got it very wrong with Will. It was just a brilliant scene in my opinion. Number 3, Kaz's death. So, this was always going to be somewhere on my list, not because I enjoyed watching Kaz die, but because it was a defining moment in Kaz's story and in the whole Wentworth story. It was also one of the most shocking death scenes since B. Smith. So, after Kaz has like some sort of epiphany after having some sessions with Dr. Miller, she ends up walking back to H Block alone. But as she's walking down a secluded corridor, an unknown hooded person jumps out from nowhere and slices Kaz's throat from ear to ear. It was so unexpected and brutal, and it's a really hard scene to watch because we literally see her struggling to hold her neck before falling to the floor and just getting weaker and weaker. Now, just before this happens, Kaz had learned who was protecting Marie, and she attempted to write his name in her own blood. But unfortunately, she ended up dying on the floor before she had the chance to finish what she was writing. And we are then left with a haunting image of Kaz laying on the floor on her own in a massive pool of blood. Which, by the way, Kaz's final scene ends with her having blood on her red right hand, symboling the red right hand group that introduced us to Kaz Proctor. Now, I don't know whether or not if that was done deliberately by the Wentworth team or if it was just a massive fluke, but nevertheless, this is a truly heartbreaking and shocking scene to watch. Number 2, Kaz kills Sonia. A brilliant moment now at number 2, and it's the moment that really made Kaz turn a corner in my opinion. So, Sonia wanted Liz dead, and the pair of them ended up on the prison roof, where Sonia tries to cave in Liz's head with a large workman's tool. I think it was a spanner or something along those lines. Anyway, luckily, Kaz arrives on the scene and manages to stop Sonia before she does any real damage to Liz. Sonia then turns into this crazy woman where she literally looks possessed and starts cradling this workman's tool, continuing to taunt Liz. Sonia tells Kaz to basically stay out of it, this has got nothing to do with you. Sonia then looks at Liz and shouts out, you are mine, and Kaz then uses this opportunity to run at Sonia and push her off the roof, causing Sonia to fall down into the yard, killing her instantly. It's a great scene, and it's not as if Kaz didn't warn Sonia to back off before deciding to kill her. Liz tries to be a hero by trying to take the blame, but Kaz is like, nah, don't do it, Liz. And Kaz then confesses in front of a horrifying Will, saying, I did it. I killed Sonia Stevens. It's such a defining moment for Kaz's character in my opinion, because Kaz was all about trying to help the women and trying to stop the violence when she first took over as top dog, but I believe that this was the moment when Kaz pretty much turned into B. Smith and took on B's traits to become a more ruthless but fair top dog. Number 1, Kaz blows up Marie Winter. This is literally my all-time favourite Kaz moment ever. Everything about this moment was executed perfectly. So, Kaz finds Allie in the kitchen, getting ready to inhale some heroin that she has scored for Marie. Now, Kaz manages to stop Allie just in time, and she forces Allie to tell her who is this heroin for, and Allie says that it is for Marie. This sends Kaz completely over the edge. Now, earlier on in this episode, Kaz and Rita were building a pipe bomb for Marie, but Rita decided last minute that she didn't want to go ahead with it, but Kaz goes straight for the pipe bomb and heads straight to Marie's cell. Kaz looks in and sees that Marie is alone, so Kaz then lights the pipe bomb and rolls it into Marie's cell, just very casual. Marie and Kaz then look at each other, and it's just such a great moment. Kaz then closes the door and puts a doorstop on the other side so Marie can't get out. Marie then starts hurling a load of abuse at Kaz before realising, shit, the bomb is about to go off. So Marie runs towards the bomb and Kaz walks away from the cell door, and then boom, we see the bomb go off and we hear a big bang and we see a load of flames appearing at the window, and Kaz just walks away like an absolute beast. I can remember thinking, oh my fucking god, when I first saw this scene at the end of episode 2. It was absolutely extraordinary, and it really is an all-time favourite moment of mine, and the music that they used was just off the scale. It's very rare for a TV show to still blow me away, if you pardon the pun, when we are 7 seasons in, but Wentworth always delivered and then some. An absolutely brilliant moment. And that was my top 10 favourite Kaz Proctor moments. So guys, what did you think of my list? Is there something on this list that you were hoping for but it didn't appear? Then let me know, guys. Let me know, what is your all-time favourite Kaz moment from the show? I want to know all of your thoughts and opinions in the comments box below. Okay guys, well that's all I have for you today. If you've made it this far into the video, then thank you all for sticking around. Make sure you smash that subscribe button for my future video updates. Stay safe out there, and I will see you all again very soon.